All right, guys. Well, thank you again for coming out on this Thursday night. Um, so we were going to get started on our webinar. We're so excited to have everybody here. Just some general information. The membership committee designed this presentation it's more geared towards club and district officers to approach thinking about recruitment and retention in the spring semester, but this information is very beneficial for any club member or any other position as well. So we will be having a fun little Kahoot quiz to wrap up some information you learned at the end, so make sure you stick around until then. But let's move in to talking about what we will be talking about. So if we can go to the agenda slide. So some things we're going to be talking about today is the purpose of, first of all, why should we be focusing on recruitment and retention, and why is it important to our organization? Then we're going to go into some common scenarios that generally our committee have found, or from our own experience, that are typically some problems that arise in different types of clubs throughout our organization. Then we're going to move on to some recruitment strategies that your clubs can implement. Then we'll talk about retention, and then we'll end with a fun Kahoot quiz, as I said earlier. So moving on to introductions, my name is Morgan Massa. I'm the chair of the membership committee. I'm currently a senior at the College of William and Mary, and that's in the Capital District. So Robbie.
Hi, my name is Robbie Day. I am the secretary for the committee and the liaison from the International Board. I go to Cameron University in Lawton, Oklahoma, so I'm a part of the Texas-Oklahoma district, and I am a political science major.
So hi everyone, I'm Michael Vitti. I know you guys can't see me, but that's because I'm sharing my screen. But I am from the New Jersey district, and I'm a junior at the New Jersey Institute of Technology, majoring in biomedical engineering, and I serve on the Recruitment and Retention Task Force for this committee.
Hi everyone, my name is Mackenzie Steele. I'm a sophomore at West Virginia University, and I've been involved in the K family for 5 years. I am now on the Recruitment and Retention Task Force, and I'm also a lieutenant governor on the West Virginia District Board.
Hey guys, my name is Don Nguyen, and I'm the data specialist here for the membership committee. I'm also a lieutenant governor from the district and a junior at the University of Alabama in Huntsville. I am a major.
Guys, my name is Kelvin. I'm the new membership specialist for the membership committee. I go to the University of North Carolina in Charlotte, and I study health systems management. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for introducing yourself. So recruitment, why is it important? So as a lot of us know, currently it's a trend across international that our club sizes are diminishing, and we want to do something about it. We want to make sure the membership committee and international wants to make sure that our members are getting the most out of their experience, and that we are able to relay the goals and the missions of Circle K and inspire future leaders to join us. So in saying that, some common club types that our committee has found, and from our own experience, is these three on the screen that you see. So the first one is a larger club that has a large membership base, but their members might not be super involved in the day-to-day actions of the club and the service they do and the fellowship events they hold. And then Club 2, or Club B, we have a smaller club that barely has enough members to be at its charter member strength. Their membership dwindles each year. They have a hard time of keeping their roster filled. And then we have Club C. They're really good at recruiting. They always get lots of members to be interested every year, but they don't have as strong retention. They are losing members, having a high turnover rate. So throughout the rest of our webinar, we're going to be kind of touching on how these 3 scenarios fit into the strategies we're going to talk about. So I'm going to hand it over to Robbie, and he's going to start talking about our recruitment strategies.
So before we focus on retaining members, we need to focus on getting them into our organization first. If your club fell into scenario B, these strategies here are key to implement. Chronologically speaking, the first method of recruitment is tabling at your school's club involvement fairs and organization fairs. And it also happens to be one of the most common things schools with large clubs cite as their reason for recruitment success. It is important to reach out to your school's administration to obtain information on all the opportunities your club will be able to table at. Sometimes one club involvement fair isn't enough. According to the University of Central Florida, at least 80% of the orientations at their school. For tabling, it is important to make sure that you cover the basics first. Materials, you can hand out as many flyers as you can. Include some brief information about your hometown club, like what kind of service projects you do and what Circle K is. For free recruitment brochures online that you can order, there is the Kiwanis store. There's a CKI section on the Kiwanis store where you can find some products that you can hand out at tabling. According to Rider University, they achieved 157% membership growth because they handed out flyers to every person that they saw. You also want to make sure that you have a sign-up sheet so you're getting people's information as you're speaking to them as well. The next thing you want to have for sure is a trifold. If you have any graphic designers in your club, they will be very helpful in creating your trifold. Have a sign to encourage past key clubbers to stop by. One very popular idea is the stop sign that says Key Club on the inside. Make sure to include lots of pictures to show that your club, what your club is actually doing. And then there are lots of resources for branding on the CKI website. The most important part of tabling, however, is the interaction with potential members. And we're going to want to think outside the box here, because it's not just enough to give a generic speech on what CKI is about. Get to know individual people as they walk by. Ask them what year they are. If they're a freshman, ask them how they're adjusting to college life. And then you can tailor Circle K into the conversation. For example, it can be a way to help them meet new people and build a family while in college. If they are another year, such as a sophomore or a junior, ask them what they're looking for in a club, and then try to incorporate Circle K to what they want. There are tons of resources on tabling and marketing in the Recruitment and Retention folder on the online CKI resources. Once you have the plan and materials to recruit, it's time to talk about how the executive board can facilitate this process by delegating responsibilities to one another. And this is what Kelvin will talk about a little bit more.
Hey guys, so whatever club scenario you fall into, your club will naturally always have meetings. So it's really important within the recruitment and retention strategy that we're making them the most effective and the most efficient and making sure that our recruitment and retention strategies are strong. So the first way to do that is that after any club involvement fair, it's really important that you have some sort of board meeting to kind of collect everything that you've done and set forth some clear guidelines on how you will recruit and retain all of your members. So one of the ways to do that is to take whatever sign-up sheet that you have, so whether it be an online one, something that was done on paper, and split that up between your board members so that they can keep active communication and making sure that they're continually talking to people. People won't remember Circle K just off of one tabling event, but they'll remember after the personal connections that are made afterwards. So making sure that emails are being sent out, club reminders. And another really important thing is that you have each board member that makes more of a personal connection with that member. So let's say, for example, you have 4 club executive board members and you have 40 people that signed up a sheet. Signing out 10 people to each person is a really great way, so they have 10 people they can make a personal connection with. So those are really important. And then a way to kind of up your retention strategies is through your club meetings. So one of the really great ways to do that is making sure that we have a meaningful icebreaker. So this should be more than just a, hey, this is. This should be more of a, hey, this is my name and a fun fact about it. So maybe something a little bit more meaningful, such as like, hey, this is my major, this is what I'm really interested in, so that there can be really personal connections within the club. People love that family sense in Circle K, and it's really important that we put that within our clubs. Second is making sure that we cater to our membership's availability. So in college, unlike Key Club, there's no set schedule of like, you leave class at this time, you can meet at this point. So one of the really great ways to address that is that your president and your vice president may have 2 different meetings within a certain day. So maybe in the morning and then in the afternoon, you can have a meeting. So you're really maximizing the time that you can see your members and share information. And then finally, kind of the overarching idea is that we really get to know our members. So making those personal connections are really important. As Robbie stated, and you'll hear throughout this webinar, is that our personal connections through everything that we do through our 3 tenets is really important for our members to come back. And when members at the end of their 4 years kind of reflect on their time in Circle K, it's really those personal connections that are being made. So making sure that you ask your members, how your day doing, what's your major, is really important. And then finally, service projects. So in-house service projects are always ideal, such as creating cards or peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for a homeless shelter. And Dawn is going to talk a little bit more about this, how to use that service tenet as a strategy for our recruitment and retention.
Thank you, Kelvin. So service is, as you know, one of Circle K's fundamental tenets, and it ties in really closely with fellowship. So when planning service opportunities, equate your CKI events to social events. You're creating opportunities to meet people and promote friendships. This includes your service events, your club meetings, and your club events, or club socials, sorry. So when building a network of friends, prior to tabling, treat this as like a sort of introduction. So prior to tabling, create short talking points to get to know your members, your potential members, right? And afterwards, create opportunities to hang out outside of the club. After your first meeting, things like that, getting their contact info, really get to know your members. All right. And when creating service opportunities, learn about your community. Your community is one of your greatest, most untapped resources. So look into your college campus, other student organizations. Greek organizations, however, are in particular quite interesting because some of them require a certain amount of service hours as a club requirement. And looking into local volunteer organizations such as community centers, food and homeless shelters, and fundraising with organizations like the YMCA, also a good opportunity to look into and engage each participant. Personalize each connection. How do you do this? First, learn their name, because obviously that's really important. By learning their name, you show them how much you care for them, and hence, they'll gain an interest in who you are as a person, and then they'll want to interact with you more as a person rather than just some club president in a leadership position, right? And second, always keep an eye out for the person who is sitting by themselves or someone who just seems uncomfortable. If someone is sitting by themselves, obviously if someone isn't doing their job. So go up, talk to them, find a way that they can engage, create opportunities for them to be able to interact with others in your organization and just any event in general. All right, so we're going to be discussing a little bit on in-meeting behavior and external behavior. In meeting, you're going for more of a business casual atmosphere. So what this means is you're creating a sort of structure. You have to keep towards your structure, but you're also open towards questions, conversations, and maybe a joke sometimes here and there, right? Your external behavior outside of the club. Open yourself again for conversation. Make sure that you're continuously talking to your members, keeping them engaged. Ask them what they're looking for out of the club. Now, this is extremely important because when people join organizations, sometimes it's just for the friends, but some people are really looking towards getting, helping people, serving the community and stuff like that. So it's extremely important to ask how they want to do that. And, just find out what their interests are. Find points to emphasize with. It's a great opportunity for bonding, and there's nothing quite like having a personal connection with someone that's. So anyways, those are my talking points. So I'm going to pass it over to Michael.
All right. So hi everyone. So although retention is an issue in almost every club, we hypothesized that these strategies will retain in most of clubs that fall into scenarios A and C. So if you believe your club identifies with one of the common scenarios that went over in the beginning, whether that be A or C, these are definitely some strategies that you want to pay attention to. So one of the things that we hear a lot about in our organization is that we say the general members are the most important members, but it's easier said than done. So let's strategize ways to actually make that saying true. So in other words, I'm looking at this in a way of what puts the ship in membership. So I like to think of the executive board's role in the club as a ship analogy. So if your members are on the ship, they're the ones who are going to dictate the direction of it. In other words, they're going to be the captain. You, as an executive board, is your role to be the sails of the ship, to kind of make sure that they're able to get in the direction they're going. So what does that translate to? It means that your members should be the ones giving your executive board ideas, and it should be the executive board's job to make that happen. And so why should we start thinking like this? Why should we be allowing members to choose which direction to go? Well, one of the most important things in retention is creating value within your members. And this is one of the best ways to do it. So instead of forcing service events down their throats, ask them what they're passionate about. There's many ways to do this, and one of them just being an informal discussion at one of your general body meetings. Ask them questions like, is there a project or organization they want to fundraise towards? Or do they want to fundraise to ensure that they don't have to pay for district events? It's a really simple process of just listening and then taking into what they said and trying to make that a reality. So in some cases, you might not even have members that suggest ideas because they're shy, but try to listen to people's responses. Suggest ideas to them and then ask them if they like it, do they hate it, why don't they like it, why they hate it. Try to get them into a conversation. So this is just one way of creating value within your members, letting them kind of steer the ship. Another way to create value on your members is making sure that they have some responsibility in your club. So what does this mean? So sometimes if you have a fundraiser or an event and there's some tasks that need to be done, a really cool thing that you can do is delegate some of those responsibilities to your members. So that way you have all hands on deck and you're getting everyone involved in these events. So that way people feel a personal connection to them. Another thing to do is if your club has committees, try to get your general members involved with that and make them part of committees. Why is that good? Because you're training future leaders. And that's one of the ways that we're going to sustain our organization. So one thing that we see a lot of clubs do is that they'll go through a really successful year, but then the executive board won't identify their future leaders. So when the time comes for elections, there will be general members that are being forced to run for positions that they're really not excited about or not really wanting to do. And that way, the next service year, the club isn't doing as well as it used to. So how to identify future leaders and sustain your club is really important. And the best way to do that is getting your members involved, whether that be delegating responsibilities or giving them committee roles. So lastly, as we've said many times, building those friendships is key to recruitment and retention. People are going to stay in clubs because they have friends there. And that's really what we're trying to focus on, is to individualize the recruitment and retention process, to get to know each member and make sure that they feel valued. So that's pretty much all I have to say on retention. To wrap things up from the content side, we'll have Mackenzie highlight some of the most important points from our webinar.
Okay, so as we've told you guys, all of these recruitment strategies that we mentioned will definitely help the growth of your club. However, they mean nothing if you don't constantly implement them. So remember to seek out every opportunity that you can to create value for the members all year long, not just at the beginning of the year or the semester. So, and then make sure the executive board plans ahead for the strategies that the officers are going to implement. Don't just wing it, actually have a plan. So before the semester starts, one way to do this is to go through the webinar, which you guys will have access to, and take note of the strategies that we've discussed, and then brainstorm ways to incorporate these strategies into your club specifically. One good idea is to create a weekly or monthly schedule for how to plan to recruit and retain membership. And remember to keep this unique and creative. Don't do the same thing every year, because that's not interesting for everyone. Remember to set realistic goals for yourself of how many new members you hope to see in your club and keep track of the club's growth and what strategies were most successful so you remember which ones to do again or how you could improve the ones that you've done. And lastly, as we've stated many, many times, individualizing recruitment is so important in this entire process. Make sure that members know that you care about them and that they feel valued by inviting them to every single event and meeting. Don't just say that the general members are the most important. Make sure that you are proving it every single day in every meeting and event. Showing members that they're valued and that you're listening to their ideas and opinions greatly helps with membership retention. So with that, I'll hand it over to Michael to lead the Kahoot quiz.
All right, everyone, we're gonna get the Kahoot quiz started. So I'm gonna head over there right now, actually. Sorry, I don't know what this is doing. Okay. So, that. All right. So everyone, if you've played Kahoot, the directions are pretty straightforward. Just go to kahoot.it. It works best on your phone from what I found. You can also go in from your computer and just type in the game pin. Yeah, and please keep the names appropriate as it says below. And we'll get started on this in about 2 minutes. So I'll give 2 minutes for everyone to join, and then we're gonna get started. All right, so we're gonna have 1 more minute and then we're gonna get started. All right, so we're gonna get started with the Kahoot now. So everyone get ready for the first question. Okay. So question 1, who are the most important people in Circle K International? Yes, it's the members that are most important, which we were trying to stress throughout our whole webinar. Okay, so here's the leaderboard right now, and we're gonna move on to question 2. Which of the following is not an important aspect of successful tabling? Have posters and flyers, get to know the people that you are talking about, be able to sell CKI, or keep it simple, a plain table in a generic speech. So again, I see a little bit of disparity among the answers here. So the keyword was not an important aspect of successful tabling. So all the others having posters and flyers are definitely going to get people attracting attention. The blue answer, which is getting to know people that you're talking to, one of the things that we tried to really stress was to individualize recruitment, and we can do that by getting to know everyone individually. Being able to sell CKI and Yellow is definitely something that we try to do. We try to brand ourselves and market our organization to get people to join. The one thing that's really not an important aspect is just to keep it simple, a plain table in your next speech, because that's just going to make you blend in with the other clubs that are at the club involvement fair, and we want to stand out in every possible way that we can. Okay, so here's the leaderboard with Chelsea in first place, and we're going to move on to the next question. So which is not an important part of club meetings for recruitment? Jump straight into the meeting, do a meaningful icebreaker at the beginning, have a service project, or cater to members' availability. So it looks like almost everyone got this right. So something, before you just get right into the meeting, start throwing information at them, you want to do all the other following things. So definitely jumping straight into the meeting is not important for a club meeting. It's something that you don't want to do. Okay, so here's the leaderboard, and we're going to move on to the next question. When scheduling a club meeting, you should base it off of board members' availability, base it off of all members' availability, randomly select a day, or always pick the same day. So yes, the correct answer is base it off of your members' availability. These are the people that the meeting is for, so it should be catered towards when they're available. So here's the leaderboard again, and we're going to move on to the next question. Which of the following cannot be accomplished through service events? Forming relationships between the board and general members, showing members what CKI is all about, gaining new members if advertised adequately, or make all members love service in CKI. So the answer to this one is make all members love service in CKI. This is not something that inherently comes from a one-time service meeting and someone usually falls in love with service. You know, it's something that is learned through over time and through different events and making them become an integral part of this organization. All the other ones, the other answer I saw people answer was gain new members if advertised adequately. So one of the things that we also talked about was getting your contact information out there and trying to get as many people to these service events as possible. So yeah, moving on. Here's the leaderboard, and we're going to move on to the next question. Which of the following is not included in how members can steer the ship of CKI? Listening to their ideas, delegating responsibilities, hold a ton of social and service events just to have events, or build friendships. So yes, one of the things that is not included on Harness Leadership is holding a ton of social and service events just to have events. Again, we talked about the ship on how to create values in your members and retain them. Just holding a bunch of events just to have events is in no way, shape, or form really helping retain your members. Question 7, when should you focus on recruitment and retention? The beginning of each school year, the beginning of each semester, when tabling events are offered, or year-round. So yes, year-round. Although recruitment and retention is a time that spikes in the beginning of each school year due to club involvement fairs, this is something that we want to continue doing the whole year so that we're maximizing how many people we can recruit. So question 8, executive board members should meet before the school year and plan on how to implement recruitment and retention strategies, plan on participating in recruitment, not how to do so, or use generic ideas for recruitment not tailored to the club. So that's the right answer, plan on how to implement recruitment and retention strategies. So one of the things that Mackenzie touched upon is that before the school year, it might be helpful to be really specific when you're planning these recruitment and retention strategies, or to have like a weekly or monthly schedule. Just to say that you're going to participate in recruitment and then actually do nothing to actively plan that is usually not something that's going to work. So making sure that make sure you have a plan on how to implement these strategies is going to be the most effective thing on how to get new members and retain them in your club. So question 9, what is the most important part of recruitment? Making an appearance, individualizing your conversations and interactions, giving a short speech about CKI, or handing out flyers. So yes, the correct answer is individualizing your conversations and interactions. While all of the other things are good for recruitment and definitely should be done, pretty much every other organization can also do those, and to make sure that Circle K stands out, the most important part of recruitment is that we want to individualize your conversations and interact with people to get to know them. So we're going to move on to our next question. Here is the leaderboard. It looks pretty close up here right now, so we'll see how it goes. So question 10 out of 10, once again, who is the most important in Circle K International? The advisors, the board members, the membership committee, or the members? So yes, although 2 people thought the membership committee were the most important CKI, and I'm honored by that, the most important people that we try to value are our general members, as we stress, because those are the people that we are trying to recruit and grow our organization with. So with that being said, let's see the final scoreboard. And congratulations to CKI Memes, who came in first with 12,388 points. In second place, we have Steve with 11,255 points, and with finals for 10,525 points. So good job to everyone. And now I'm gonna go back to the PowerPoint just to give you guys a last kind of slide to look at.
So at this time, we also want to open the floor up for questions, or if you guys want to ask us anything from our own experiences, let us know. And also, of course, if you don't feel comfortable asking a question now in a larger group, our emails are below if you want to get in touch with any of us. Myself, Morgan, I'm the chair, and then Mackenzie and Michael are the Recruitment and Retention Task Force, so their job is to specifically work on these types of questions.
I have a question. I would like to hear if anyone has kind of a special thing that they do at their school. I know we gave kind of a more general kind of overview of recruitment that kind of works throughout all club levels. Once again, we didn't want to cater only to one club, but is there anything special that you guys do? So for example, I know the University of Alabama does this luminary thing, and if you've seen their Facebook page, they posted this really cute story about how they got members that got married, have kids now. So I would like to hear if anyone has a special kind of recruitment retention thing going on at their school that's beyond just flyers and tabling.
So I can start it off. My school, the College of William and Mary, we have our first meeting as an ice cream social. And so at our tabling event or at the couple days leading up to the meeting, we go around campus and we hand out spoons to people walking by that have the information of our meeting on it. And it usually gets their attention pretty well because they're like, why are you giving me a spoon? What is this for? And also free food they're getting at the meeting. So it's pretty enticing, yeah.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. So thank you, Kevin, for bringing up that question. I think it's good to have a conversation with everyone and kind of get different recruitment ideas, because I think that's one of the most effective ways of also getting it. Because again, recruitment is so club specific as well, I feel, that it's not one size fits all with every strategy. So one of the things that my school does is we actually combine one of our fundraisers with our first meeting. And we usually do it with a nearby restaurant, so whether it be Chipotle or Blaze Pizza. We'll kind of advertise that we're gonna have a kind of get together at one of these restaurants after our first meeting. So like after the first meeting, we'll have everyone walk with us to one of those restaurants, and that's how I get to know like a lot of our members within our club.
Cool. Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Kelvin, for the question. I appreciate it.
I saw on the attendance sheet that there's somebody from UCF, and I'm pretty sure you guys do something cool. Maybe they're not on anymore. That's okay.
Hey, okay, I'm on. I thought of so there's one thing that it's not like anything too special, I guess. I think this is what you're referencing, but our school, we have this thing called Night Connect. I'm pretty sure most schools have like something like it, but it's pretty much run by like the office that runs all the clubs. I can't think of what it's called, but it's pretty much where they post about all the different clubs. They allow clubs to post like different events that they're doing, and so we post all of our events on there, and that's been a really great way for us to get recruitment, because people want to come out and they want to get to our service projects, and then they get to talk to us and interact with us at the service projects. And like more times often than not, they actually want to come back to our club meetings and like join the club because they enjoy hanging out with us at the service projects. So that's been working for us. I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, sure. I guess another general question for everybody. Is there any problem or a scenario that we didn't bring up that has happened in your clubs or your experience before that you'd like to talk about and open a discussion about?
I think one of the really good things to talk about, I know there's like a lot of people on here that have worked on like the district board or do some connection, have worked on like district level, some lieutenant governors are on here. And one of the things that lieutenant governors, I think, always have the hardest time, and really any board member, is how do you recruit when you're like not at the school? Because like, you know, with chartering and like wanting to build new clubs, like what is a good strategy to find members on campus that, you know, because you can't be on campus, what is other solutions to like get members excited? I'll start off. So when I chartered last year, one of my biggest kind of saving graces was social media. I followed kind of like this three-step process of like breaking up my my social media posts around certain times of the year so that the most effective. So I always did it at the beginning of the year because that's when people are really looking for clubs. That's when recruitment is at its highest. Then I also did it at the beginning of winter because a lot of transfer students start coming in and they're also looking for clubs, and people may just be looking for like a New Year's resolution, and Circle K could be it for it. And then I also did it at the end of the year because that's when members are really thinking about, well, what's my next step in college? So those to me were like the most effective times to always go on social media, post something really quickly about Circle K, even if it didn't come to like a member actually saying, the word got out. So that's kind of like a really good tip. Like use social media to your advantage. We live in such a social media world that not using it can almost be detrimental to our recruitment and retention strategies.
Well, if you guys don't have any questions or concerns, you're free to leave at any time you want. Our membership committee will just stick around for a little while just to make sure if you do have any questions or concerns, you can talk to us. But if not, I hope you guys, if you're not done with finals, have a great rest of your finals, or if you're done, have a great holiday season. And thank you everyone for coming out.
So I kind of have a concern here. So I know of this club where a lot of the people that are in the club are like from the same major. And so, and like from the same school and everything, and it's supposed to be representative of a larger university. What are some ways that people can get out and combat that issue of kind of, being together and reaching out and making their club more diverse?
Robbie, is there a specific major that oh, sorry, am I speaking over somebody? Okay. Is there a specific major that like you had in mind? Because I have a couple ideas.
So the people that are here are like music majors, so like all music majors, and sometimes it can like affect what the club can actually attend or not attend. So specifically, they've had issues missing district convention because they had like a whole band like competition or whatever they had. And so I'm just thinking of like ways that what can they do to help market the club better in the university, I guess.
So something that my club does is we have a lot of pre-med people, and we kind of like to say that the service opportunities can like help you get the requirements you need for like different things. So like it works out really well for pre-med people because they need like a certain amount of volunteer hours for like medical school, or like something randomly we do for history majors is we are working on this like online archives project, which can like count towards service if you do it sometimes. So just maybe like thinking about how you could tailor some of the service projects you do or opportunities in your local area that could be beneficial for like different major types.
Thank you, that was very helpful.
Robbie, is this something that they brought up to you as a concern, or is this something that you see as a concern?
It's something I brought up as a concern.
Okay, well, because the reason, there's not a wrong answer to that question, but the reason I'm asking is because I think this might sound like a little naive, but I think it's really on them to, if they don't think it's a problem, that's going to stay that atmosphere of that club, because for them, they might love that group and that might be their core friends and they don't see an issue with it. So I think, as someone from outside the club, that's kind of where you're in the tricky spot of, they have this, if it's working and they're not, and they're fine, it's kind of tough to call it out. But it's kind of having to have them realize that, oh yeah, this isn't music club. This isn't singing. This isn't whatever other music organization it is. So that's kind of, I guess, the really tricky part, right? Is figuring out like, shoot, like I'm from outside the club and I know that this is not what our organization is all about if they do make it revolve around music. So I don't think I have an answer, but I just thinking about it, like I think it's a tough situation you have, I don't know what to tell you. But anyone else have any input on that, thinking about how this is something he's realizing from outside of the club?
I have a club in my district that was started not too long before I joined, and it was all soccer team. So one part of the month they didn't do anything because they were traveling. And now recently they're starting to get people, I think their next president isn't on the soccer team. So she doesn't understand why they're gone during the fall semester. Like, what are you doing? So what she's trying to do, I explained it to her, and she's starting to partner up with other organizations, other, people who aren't on sports, just to diversify the club. It's really important, like you said, that you don't let one type of group or one type of interest overwhelm the club, because then it's no longer Circle K, it's now music club or soccer team, and we're revolving around that. And at no point should Circle K revolve around a soccer schedule or music tournaments. Those things are great that our members are so involved in them, but we also want to make sure that our tenets of service, leadership, and fellowship are still being followed throughout the year, and diversification is really important. So making sure that we have really well thought out partnerships with other clubs. So on my campus, we try to partner with Greek Life and Interfaith to bring those people in because they usually have a really big service focus. So we're diversifying the club a lot. And then we have general membership, or what we call, like, you know, people who aren't coming from these other organizations. So that's a really great option to think about, is who can I partner with to diversify my club's membership rather than just only having one core group. Because what Julia said was a really great point. Don't let your club only become a friend group. It has to be more than that. You want to bring more people to make more friends, but it should not only be your circle of friends.
So, Kelvin, do you know how that president kind of got involved? Because I'm kind of curious as to, like, thinking about, you know, Robbie being from an outside perspective, and Robbie, you might not even be the one in this position, so I'm just using you as an example. But what do any of you really think is the best way to approach that situation, and try to, because if they don't think it's a problem and they don't have, and maybe they do have fewer members than someone would like looking in, but how would you approach that conversation and that situation, I guess, to kind of make them see that it's great that you're all friends, but we kind of need to broaden our horizon?
Yeah, so with the so with the club president that I'm working with, one of the things that our district board likes to do, and like I really like to do with club president, is just give an honest picture of where the club is. I think that's one thing that we need to always kind of keep in mind, that recruitment and retention isn't going to look the same from last year, isn't going to look the same from this year. It changes every single year. So I think one thing, if you're in a district position and you're working directly with clubs, is to be very honest about where your club is right now. So I told that club president, like, hey, listen, your club is all soccer team. That's great. We love it. We love that the soccer team is getting involved. But your club's service drops dramatically and then is on a major increase on the spring semester show. So it shows a lot. And I think they respect that a lot, because it's like, oh, we didn't think about it. So the perspective of bringing in, like, hey, this is what your club looks like from the outside is really important. That club president actually mentioned to me too, before she joined Circle K, was the fact that she had an outside perspective of Circle K because she had friends that were in it. She could make a clear connection. So if we lead them that way, they can kind of understand, like, oh, our club does not do service during this part, or this friend group is hindering this part of our organization. So kind of just giving an honest picture, whichever way, if you're in the club, if you're from outside the club, whatever it may be, just so things can be addressed correctly. Because I think friends, the unfortunate side is that your friends won't ever be your best critic. So kind of always try to clean it up for you so you don't get your feelings hurt. But someone from the outside can really be instrumental to that. And maybe asking other friends too, like, that aren't a part of Circle K, like, what does this club look like to you? May be a helpful option as well.
I'd also say that, like, I think that when a club board is kind of meeting at the beginning of a year, and even checking in throughout the year, it's really important that they get an idea of kind of the membership base that they're trying to go for and the general, like, club culture. You know, something that you can kind of notice if you're just looking around between different clubs is that a lot of clubs will have a different culture. Maybe there's one club that they all like to knit sweaters together. I'm not kidding. There's like a club that actually was like that. We had a club where everyone loved to do, you know, sing-alongs and everything. And it was very, very interesting to watch that happen. So I think that it's really important that when you're not just, you know, coming up with recruitment strategies, but make sure you're very mindful of the language that you're using and the type of socials that you're trying to plan as you go throughout the year. So while you're working in these recruitment and retention techniques, make sure you're keeping a target audience in mind and making those activities diverse. Yes, you want it to fit your membership base, but you want it to be accurate of where you want your membership to be. If you don't want your membership base to be really cliquey or something, then don't make it such that it's cliquey and people would be excluded. So really tailor your activities to how that is. And for instance, and I've seen it myself where there was a club that everyone kind of fit the same personality type, and as soon as that guy who's the president of that club graduated, its membership dropped in half. So if a club isn't mindful of who its base is, there's a real potential for that club to have at least a full year of struggling and having to rebuild after a drastic cut in membership and drastic loss of activity. So as you're going in and having those conversations, make sure that you're keeping in mind also what the consequences can be if they don't address it from the beginning.
I have something to add. This is going to strike a bit of a different tone than what everybody's been saying so far. And I agree with what everybody's been saying so far. As opposed to addressing the change, that would be great, but actually enacting like any change, it's going to be hard because there's going to be some resistance. I mean, what they know best is music. However, music could be a very interdisciplinary field. And if you pitch the service events right and choose service events right, they could still revolve a bit around their own strength, music, and still attract people from other fields or people that have different personality types. Let's say if you could somehow volunteer with people working with pediatric music therapy. One, it attract people who are majoring in linguistics or something of that nature, or neuroscience, or just early childhood education would also be attracted to those sorts of events. And you could use the strong community you have of music people in order to expand into different communities, because a lot of times different fields intersect. People are naturally going to be inclined to serve in places where they could see themselves serving in the future, and they really see a meaningful impact because they know from what they're learning in school what the impact could actually be. That's just me. I could be wrong, but I've noticed with my clubs, at least, there's some success in that strategy.
I kind of want to touch on one thing that Laura said that was like really resonated with me with one of my clubs. So at Wake Forest University, we had kind of the opposite of what you were talking about, Laura, in the sense that a new club president came in and their membership literally doubled. And it really shows that if you have, I don't want to say the right person, but if you have a club president that is really involved in on campus life and that they really take the time to meet their membership, you can see results. So what we said isn't kind of like oh, this is what we think will work for you. It does actually work, because those people that have those connections on campus and making sure that if you have a committee structure, you know, those positions are appointed. So you kind of have a little bit more say on who you can have on the membership committee on your club level. It's really important that you, I want to say, be very selective of who you pick to be on those committees, because the people you can pick have a very drastic impact on what your club looks like on the outside. You know, is our club board diverse? Do we have a lot of people? So I love that you mentioned that, Laura, because this is more than just the strategies we use, but it's really about thinking your club as a whole operating machine. It's more than just one tabling event. It's more than just one flyer. It's really a holistic picture that you need to look. Thing that everyone in Circle K say is that recruitment is a year-long thing. Well, it's really more than a year long. When you transition at the end of the year, you really need to think about who your next leaders are and making sure that you pass along those retention and recruitment strategies, give them a 101 of like, this is what we did this year, this is what you should be thinking about next year, and this is how you can change it up in some way or form. So.
Yeah, absolutely agreed with that last part. One of the things that we touched on in this presentation was like making sure that that transition is smooth between your leaders, because it's something that at least in my district, wasn't talked about a lot until this like recent year. Even on the district level, it happened. We had a lot of vacancies at district convention, and then people were running off the floor. And luckily I had good leaders, but in other clubs, when you're forcing these people to take on these roles that, you know, necessarily they don't want to be in or are kind of not knowledgeable about, they're not going to want to be the people that are recruiting, retaining these strategies like really well. That was badly worded, but the people that are not going to be working as hard to make sure that their club is growing. And one way is to alleviate that, again, is identifying your leaders early. And then kind of, again, what Kelvin was saying, making sure that there's that one-on-one between like the previous service year leaders and the next service year's leaders, and making sure they have that conversation between like, this is what worked this year, this is what didn't work. Let's think of ways that we can recruit and retain next year. I think that's something that's really valuable, and that's something that's at least a lot of reasons why I've seen a lot of clubs deteriorate in my district, is because the leadership this year is like, oh, I never heard from this past president that they did this last year. I didn't know that worked well for them. And then it ends up that they just keep trying like different things and they're not really working. And it's because they don't have that previous knowledge that was given to them from their previous board. So I think facilitating those conversations between and making between the new and old boards is really helpful, and also making sure those transitions are smooth is really important.
Hey, so I have a question. So at CKIX, Matt Matsony talked about like recruiting strategy, where it was like you'd get people's phone numbers at the fall club fairs, and then you'd have like everyone reach out to the people like individually and meet up with them for coffee, and then get them to join. Has anyone's club actually implemented that? And if so, was it successful?
I actually can jump in on this because that was exactly my question that I was jumping on. So here at Ohio State, I had coffee with 50 individuals. That was a lot of coffee. But what ended up happening was we got more names than anything else using the strategy that I did with the rock, paper, scissors. But what ended up happening is, even though we got coffee with them and we're having that in continued interaction, they would show up to the first meeting and then slowly they all kind of died off, which I don't know if that's something to do with our club structure in of itself, if we need to figure out how to keep members. But we got, I would think we had about like 20 out of the 50 people who went and got coffee to show up to our first meeting, and then slowly tapered down to about 10 who became brand new members.
So would you say that the strategy was worth it?
I mean, if you could divvy out the work to your board, yes. For one person to do that, I can tell you I got coffee 4 times a day for the first 2 weeks of school. It was just crazy. I can already see it. Yes. I by the end, the coffee people already knew what I wanted. But in reality, I think it ended up being worth it. But I think what you need to do is definitely not take the workload on yourself, and make sure you have a committee set up at your school to deal with the membership and retention, and making sure that you have a division on like, okay, you're going to take 1 or 2 people. You're going to take 1 or 2 people. And because that's what I found out is that I couldn't make a personal connection with all the people. But the people who I was actually able to make a really tight personal connection stayed.
So kind of the way that that strategy from Matt Matson is designed is the person who is the one getting coffee with the person is supposed to be somebody who had already had a contact with them or a conversation with them in the first place. So I think it's really amazing the initiative you took to do that. So you had the conversations with all those people.
Yeah, actually, I was the only one at our involvement table, and
oh, okay. Well, then I guess that's a different problem. Yes. You have more people at your involvement table to kind of delegate that as well. So I would say, that's really great that your club did take the initiative to follow through on all of those. But like you said, it definitely needs to be delegated to more than one person to take that opportunity. And even if you don't have the opportunity to start a conversation and make that connection, it can be delegated in other ways. You can pair people up together, say this potential member expressed interest in playing the guitar or something, and you have a club member that's really into playing the guitar. Why don't you match them up to go get coffee together or to have a conversation together? So that's some way you could mediate that problem.
Oh, wait, can I add on that? So I think this might have been what you were talking about earlier, but at UCF, we do this thing. We have Flamingo Friends. So at the beginning of the semester, people can fill out an application to get a general idea of your interests, and then they get paired up with someone else in the club who can have those similar interests, and they can hang out. And then about halfway through you can switch those out every week, every month, whatever, however you want to. So that way you have more opportunities to go through different people and have better interactions. But another thing that we do is we have families. So we have people fill out another application, and we have people paired up until about 5 different people who all have similar interests, and that's a little bit more permanent. So that way you can have a friend group in the club and like not have to worry about like meeting new people, and you always know that you have those 5 other people there with you to not worry about.
Terry, to answer your question, some clubs do have recruitment and retention officers. Others kind of like, it kind of varies in the name. The name kind of changes throughout clubs. So you can have like a membership committee, a vice president of membership, recruitment and retention officer. We do at our club, it works pretty well in the sense that someone is actively focusing on the membership more than everyone else. So they take a bigger load of the membership, but once again, it's still this club effort that has to happen. It should never be left on one person just to do. But it works pretty well if you assign responsibilities and roles well, and that they have an active plan for the year to do that recruitment and retention. Hope that answered your question.
Hey, so I have another question. So we talked about like the importance of recruiting people for like district and like officers positions, but how can we like effectively get people to run for district positions while not taking like a good quality officer away from someone for running at the club level?
So that's just definitely comes down to like a balance of priorities. Obviously, we want to tell people the club comes first, but essentially you do kind of see people, because I was in a similar situation where it was kind of like, well, no one run for district secretary, or we have, the club kind of die down a little bit. Fortunately, I was able to find somebody good who could take over. But that also took a lot of conversations that I had to have with different people to see if they'd be interested in taking over, see if they'd be interested in leading the club or filling this position. So that way you could move on. And it's just anyone, that's a part of what you kind of need to do in order to do the thing.
Yeah, so I think it's also like a thing of priority too, because you're not going to have like a district if you don't have like a consistent membership base. So you really want to like iterate that the club positions are the most important. And I think that's kind of like just what we were trying to say, like the general gist of what recruitment should be and like some goals of it. I don't really think we have our committee's coming from a good position to comment so much about running for district office. Like that's a different topic a little bit, but definitely a good thing to think about. All right, guys, is there any last questions before we sign off? Wonderful. Well, I hope you guys, again, have a great holiday season, end of finals, all of that stuff. Please remember, you can reach out to anybody on the committee if you want more information. Yay!